Yeah.
What will be the political picture within China and places that lose this?
Sure. The question is whether the political stability in places like China, they're going to be losing coherence. If you look at the world map going up to about 1950, you'll notice that large portions of it really weren't developed. In China, I think this is the future. China is now a net importer, not just of food and energy, but they're actually a majority importer of both. That will stop. So you're going to be seeing mass population movements in places like China as people who have moved to the cities to take advantage of the manufacturing base suddenly don't have jobs. You'll probably see people going on long walks in large groups. You'll probably see the Chinese government fall. You'll probably see individual cities on the coast that are hungry and need power trying to attract countries like the United States or Australia or Korea to supply it for them. And you'll have the spheres of influence era repeated like we had in the 1800s, where Beijing was the capital only in name, but Hong Kong and Fujian basically made their own independent policies. And as for the interior, it'll probably just fall off the map. The interior has never been able to develop simply because of transport costs. They can't access the international system very cheaply. But that picture is going to be different in each and every country that you look at. Europe is, even if Europe can hold it together until this happens, Europe as a whole, actually each individual country in Europe is a net importer of oil and natural gas with the exception of Norway. So you're going to see history come back. Europe in 2025 is going to have a lot more in common with Europe in 1900 than with what we've seen in the last two generations. Yeah?
How do you see the worldwide growth of the Muslim population?
The worldwide growth of the Muslim population. Every Islamic country in the world imports more than half of their calories. It's remarkably self-correcting. You remove global trade from the picture, you have population corrections. I mean, I don't mean to be a downer, but it really is that simple. These are areas that have been important in a world where global trade is possible and cheap and safe. Very soon, global trade will not be possible or cheap or safe. And you're going to see countries like Brazil fall off the market in terms of food production, places like Ukraine, places like South Africa, places like Russia. Lower food production, higher transport costs, you are going to have global demographic adjustments because of that. Also, I wouldn't worry too much about terrorism in general. I don't want to say it's a non-worry, but there's two things that make terrorism dangerous for the United States. One is getting to the United States is really easy. Well, not in a world where global trade's difficult. The only people who are going to be able to make that trip are the people who already have some money. So you'll probably see a lot of skilled labor fleeing to the United States, but not a lot of the huddled masses. So we'll have our local low-skilled immigration source from south of us, and then we'll have German engineers and French accountants and Italian designers and Chinese engineers. It's going to make for a very different and more kaleidoscopic labor market. But terrorists are going to find it more difficult. Second, for international terrorism of the transcontinental nature that we really worry about, you also need a place that holds together sufficiently that you don't have to fight for your own territory. Now, it's really only, can we bring that map back up? It's really only the orange states on this map. These are the decentralized states. These are places where the central government holds, but just barely, probably only in name. Places that go actually red, where those are areas where every armed group is going to be fighting for their own little chunk of land. But these orange areas, these are places where you can have transnational terrorism, kind of a base to work from and then project out. But there aren't a lot of Muslim populations in the orange states. Pakistan is by far the biggest one, but the people in Pakistan who generally embrace terrorism live all the way up in the north and are more concerned with what is going on next door in Kashmir than what's going on in the United States. Doesn't mean that a threat can't boil out of there, but it's just not very likely. The only other places are in Russia, where the Tatars and the Chechens are problematic, but you want to talk about groups that have bones to pick closer to home, that's the Chechens. The Chechens aren't coming to New York City. So there's not much to worry about. Doesn't mean there's nothing to worry about, but there's not much. I'm sorry, I'm having problems seeing. Yeah, go ahead.
You talked about Western Europe reverting back to where they were in the early 1900s.
Sure.
Well, let's go through that history again. You have World War I, World War II, pretty much originating in Europe.
Yep.
There are Germany and France. Germany has a lot of technology, a lot of power. France has a very big ego. Are they going to just
There's huge differences within the European systems in terms of capacity. Germany obviously has the most industrial capacity and the ability to implement change the fastest, but they're a food importer and they import 2/3 of their energy. Should something happen with the relationship with Russia, Germany has to take a military action almost immediately just to keep the lights on, but right now they don't have the military to do it. So if what I've described here happens over the arc of a decade, and the Germans have 10 years to kind of prepare for it, then I would bet on Germany. But if the Americans have an epileptic fit and pull the rug out of the system tomorrow, I'd bet on France. The French have a much more self-contained economy. They've got better links with energy producers in places like Algeria. They produce all of their own food. Over the long stretch of history, the Germans may be able to out-German them, but they need a lot of things, a lot of constellations to be in the sky at the right place for that to work. So overall, I'd bet on Germany. Oh, by the way, the tentative title of the book has changed. It's The Accidental Superpower, mostly about the United States now. The sequel, if it gets picked up, is The Intentional Superpower, and that will be about France.